Hi, I'm Chris Edmonds of the Purposeful Culture Group. I'm here with my co-author, Mark Babbitt. Our new book is out. It's called Good Comes First. And we were thrilled to connect with Dov this morning on the Leadership and Loyalty podcast to talk about three things that might interest you. One of them is that work culture is vitally important. And if you compromise on the quality of your work culture, you get exactly what you deserve, which is crap. A second key is that thinking like old white guys, okay, there's three old white guys on the screen in front of you, but the old boomer male syndrome philosophy of leadership and wanting to go back to normal now that the pandemic is starting to move past us, that'll kill you and it'll kill your business. And the last thing, you've heard of the Great Resignation. You've heard of the labor shortage and 48 million plus US workers voluntarily quitting their jobs in 2021. Listen to the show and we'll prove to you that there is no labor shortage at all. So stay tuned.
Welcome back to part two of our delicious conversation with Chris Edmonds and Mark Babbitt. They are the co-authors of a very timely book called Good Comes First, How Today's Leaders Can Create Uncompromising Company Culture. And we were talking a lot about, in part one of the book, we've talked about old white guys and the resistance to change and how important that change is, how the pandemic has changed the way that people are looking at work, whether they are boomers, whether they are millennials or Gen Z. And we talked about that there was this massive push for the hustle culture that started in 2008 and has really sort of burned everybody and everything out, and that the pandemic in many ways has sort of brought us back to a starting place, and that there is this natural compulsion to say, well, we got to get back to normal, but normal burned everybody out. People were walking around. I wrote about this in several of my articles where I wrote about that people were walking around burned out and bragging about it. You know, how are you doing? I'm burned out, but I'm good. You know, we're making this happen. No, it's all changed. And this book really addresses that. As I said, both of our guests are highly in-demand speakers around the world. They have consulting companies. They work all over. They write for some of the major publications. And when we talked about this book, you know, Good Comes First, one of the things that comes down to is there's this, that's an idea. Okay, good comes first. All right, good. It's a philosophy. It's a good idea. But where do we start? Where do we actually put that into the practicality? That's where we want to go in this half of the show, in the second half of the show. Like, what are the tactics? What's the practicality of it? So let's jump into that. Good comes first. Let's start with, how do we take this out of the conceptual, gents, and put this into the practical?
When we started writing this book, and Chris and I, as Chris has already said, we almost had the manuscript done when the pandemic hit, and we had to stop and hit the reset button, because the first manuscript talked about, you're going to have to get used to the end of the hustle culture, the end of workaholism, the people working from home. Well, boom, literally overnight, that's where we were. And so, okay, back to the drawing board. Now let's reset. And even the title changed to Good Comes First, because now we knew people were already experiencing this different, maybe slower, certainly more human lifestyle. And now, great, but how do we define good for everybody reading the book? That's impossible. And so we literally start the book by saying, we can't help you define what good is, but we're going to show you how. And here's what it comes down to. We ask leaders to sit down with their leadership team and influencers and key employees, and don't just talk about mission and vision and some abstract list of core values that's on the wall in the lobby. Really sit down and talk about, one, what is our servant purpose? Besides making money, why are we on this planet? How do we make the lives of our employees and our customers and our community members better? And so that's number one. Number two, rather than just talk about that abstract list of values, let's decide what our 3 to 5 core values are, which would imply what good means to us. And then let's assign 3 to 5 behaviors that might indicate whether or not we're actually living those values. So if we have, for instance, a value that says no back channel communications, no gossip, then the behavior might be, when we have a problem, you come to me first, right? Well, now we, especially among the leadership team, we can actually send out a survey to direct reports and peers and friends and vendors and say, does Mark come to me first? Right. And now we have objective data that says, oh, Mark, you only got a 2.4 out of that. You pretty much suck at this, right? Stop your back channel communications. Stop gossiping. Go right to the person that you have a problem with and fix this. And then that ends all the drama. It ends all the disrespect, because I know you came to me first. I might have said something to upset you. Now I get a chance to make that right, rather than hearing about it from 14 different people. Well, that's just one example. But if we have 3 to 5 values and then 3 to 5 behaviors, and you're measured, you're held accountable based on objective data for meeting that, living that value, meeting that commitment, then boom, now we have something quantified. We've assigned a number, a score to a completely human behavior that you agreed to uphold, that you agreed, I'm going to live up to this, especially as a leader, and I'm not, and now I need to fix, because clearly by not doing that, I'm not showing my employees, my company, my vendors, my customers, the respect they've earned.
And if I can add on to that, Dov, what you're hearing is we invite leaders to be very specific about what respect looks like, what good literally looks like in day-to-day interactions. And we've been playing with this and sometimes battling leaders with it, because we have to change mindsets a little bit. And typically we go to the, tell me how you manage performance around here. Do you have performance metrics? Do you have maybe even a strategic plan? And they may say yes, they may say kind of, they may say, let me, dust it off because it hasn't been touched in 5 years. But there's a better comfort with, yes, as a leader, I know I have to set performance targets. And then there's the accountability piece. Well, some people are great. They deliver everything we ask. Some folks don't. I've never quite figured out the magic wand of how to get everyone to deliver on their promised results. So we can help you with the accountability for results, but we also have to have you, in essence, let's clone some of the skills. You set performance standards. Good. Let's set respect standards. And that's what you just heard Mark describe. It shifts aspirational servant purpose and aspirational values to observable, tangible, measurable behavior. And we had a wonderful conversation with a client a couple of months ago where they said, but it means that you make those behaviors changeable. I don't have to change my religion, right? I don't have to change my history. I can change the way I behave. So what it allows is that if we have, in essence, kind of a system, set standards and hold people accountable for results, set standards, and let's hold people accountable for respect. And literally, as Mark described, measuring, a measurable behavior is you come directly to me if you have a concern or a problem. Another one might be I keep my promises. Well, all of a sudden now we've got desirable, respectful interactions where good comes first, formally defined, and we can do surveys. We can gather hard data about what many leaders think is soft skills. Well, they're not soft skills. They're literally, how do I demonstrate respect to people? And if I do that, a lot of good things are going to happen. But it allows leaders with some undeniable data about people that are aligning to the behaviors you want and people who are not. And then we have to hold people accountable.
So let's go to the obvious question that comes out of that. And I know you have an answer for it, but it's important to bring it up. we all know that getting honesty out of an employee is pretty much like getting blood out of a stone. We talked about this in a previous conversation where I said, when I ask a leader, who's your number one person that answers to you, and they say, there's this person, what is their number one job? And they tell me, and I say, it's not their number one job. And they go, oh, it is. And I go, no, it's not. And they go, what do you mean? And I said, their number one job is keeping you happy because you pay their rent, you pay the mortgage, if you fire them, they're gone, right? So this is a major thing. And the problem with that, it's not that they're bad people, but what it means is that there's a malalignment of honesty.
Yes.
I can't really tell you the whole truth and nothing but the truth because I can get canned.
Yeah.
So when we're talking about these, creating a set of metrics that applies to respect, how do we do that in such a way that we can guarantee that it is actually going to be truly honest and not just, well, you're a good boss. There's some things that kind of bug me a bit, but it's probably me. I'm just, it's me. I'm probably a bit picky. I know because I've heard that kind of stuff, right?
I'll tell you that I'll add one layer onto the job description that you just outlined by saying my first job is making you happy. Well, then their second job is impressing you. And as long as I'm still impressing you, then I'm safe. And here's the problem, and it gets back to what Chris just said. Up until recently, because we didn't put good first, we didn't talk about respectful workplaces, and as a result, in 90% of the workplaces out there truly do suck. Nobody wants to go back to that. Then if my only job is to make you happy and to impress you, I'm going to key in on the characteristics that you reward.
Yes, of course.
Whether it's performance, if I'm a salesman, great. I need to be in the top 3. I got it. I can do that. That's how I'm going to impress you. That's how I'm going to make you happy, right? Yep. If it's being a frat brother, and we're going to talk negatively about women in the workplace, or maybe an occasional racist joke comes out because that's what you laugh at, that's the person I'm going to become. And what we're asking leaders to do is to say, every time you make a female coworker uncomfortable, you're being disrespectful. Every time you make a person of color feel less than, you're being disrespectful. So we're going to teach you that culture is built upon the positive behaviors you reward, and it's torn down by the unproductive, disrespectful behaviors that you tolerate. And so we shift the thinking from maybe a frat brother, top salesman, top dog, alpha male kind of work environment that's been pervasive since the 1950s in America and Western society in general. And we're actually asking you to be more human, to be more democratic in how you treat people. And a lot of our companies and a lot of the readers of Good Comes First, they say the first thing we have to do is change the mindset from whatever it is we've been. And we're not judging, because that's the past, that's your benchmark, that's your, from that point, we improve now. So no judgment, but they say we actually have to change our mindset from the locker room mindset, from the happy hour mindset, from the Friday night party and the extreme Christmas parties that have been happening for years. We have to change that to be this more respectful, deliberately respectful environment. And that's a big change. And right before the break, we said, maybe you're not ready for this change. Maybe your organization, until you have a change in leadership, until you get some of the old boy network mentality out, maybe you're not ready for this yet, because you can't go losing 60% of your people. You just can't, right? So take it one step at a time. Take it one personality at a time, or one character trait at a time, But maybe don't jump into this yet because you're not ready.
That brings up exactly where I was going to go, Mark, which is those cultures have been built over a long period of time.
Decades.
Right? Decades, absolutely. And so there's a lot of that. And for us to change that, us being whatever the company is that's looking at it, says, it's just too much. It's just too much. I mean, yeah, we can see that we're kind of behind the times, but, I don't, like everybody who works here, we understand that that's kind of the culture, is what we are. And we're also highly productive and we're also highly profitable. So, yeah,
so why change?
You know what?
So why change?
Exactly. Why change? Right?
It
becomes that why change.
And isn't it also true that leaders have never been asked to change their cultures? They've never been taught how. The focus has been improve market share, improve profitability, right, et cetera. And so one of the interesting challenges that we face is, and it's a question that as we raise, okay, so you're going to manage results in a more proactive fashion, and you're going to manage respect in a proactive fashion. And leaders are immediately going, I get 10% of my population that are really not nice people. They're not nice to each other. They're not even nice to their customers. They're not nice to AR or AP, right? So there's this sense that, well, I can't lose them. And the reality is there's 2 heart attacks that we're all experiencing right now. I had mine back in 93. We can talk about that later. But one heart attack is the Great Resignation, the Great Realignment. People are no longer staying in organizations that are disrespectful. The other piece is these younger generations, Gen Zs, I just heard, hopefully it doesn't stick, that it's the next generation will be called Gen AA. And I thought, oh, we've got to do something different than that terminology.
The generation of Alcoholics Anonymous.
That takes it down a very different path. But these generations are not going to tolerate the ways that business used to operate. And it literally means that you have no choice. You have to make this change. But let's go back to that leader who says, oh my God, I'm going to lose her. I'm going to lose him. They're our top performers. They're a little rough around the edges. No, they're a-holes, right? They're not rough around the edges. But the reality is that if you're able to reduce that demeaning, dismissive, discounting behavior, bullying behavior, racist, harassing behavior, profits go up. Results go up by 30 to 35% over an 18-month time frame. Because what's going to happen in that 18 months is a certain portion of the population is going to go, I love this. We should have done this years ago. This fits my values. Another percentage of the population, which could be a big chunk, 60, 70%. Let's see where this goes. Let's see if this really sticks. We've gotten t-shirts from these big programs before and nothing changed. And then there's 15% that are going, you don't pay me enough to be nice to these people. I'm out. And the reality is that, yes, you may lose high performers who have gotten about their performance in very demeaning ways. And that's going to change your culture for the better. And you're actually going to come out ahead.
And I couldn't agree more that is what will happen. But in the interim, it doesn't feel like that to them. Because like we talked about before, these are the turds in the barrel, right? We talked about in our last conversation, I said, if you drink rainwater that comes from the sky and it's caught in a barrel, and I just drop one turd in it, the whole barrel is now poisoned. And you may have employees who are very high performing employees, but they're turds in the barrel and they're poisoning the entire culture. But it comes down to, well, my shareholders need us to be profitable, and I'm going to keep this turd in the barrel because we're still profitable. And so that's the resistance. The resistance is in the, because you and I, we all talked about this in a previous convo, which is the bottom line of profit and the bottom line of respect. And as sort of like my pushback on it was, they'll always choose the bottom line of profit. They're going to choose that overall.
All they know.
Right. And so if they're pushing back on that one, then these a-holes who are working there are going to stick around, and they're sending the message, well, the culture is, yeah, we're all about respect and we're all about these things, unless you're a high performer. Once you're a high performer, the rules change and you can do whatever the heck you like.
Yeah.
And that's pretty much how businesses run for as long as I can remember.
Absolutely.
Doug, I'll tell you this. We opened the show by talking about denial, and you're right. Especially the old white guys, they're not just used to focusing on results. They're measured by it.
Yep.
They're compensated by it.
Yep.
They get promotions based on it.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So if that's the way your culture is, chances are your culture in your company is going to change very much.
Yep.
But let's fast forward 3 years from now.
Mm-hmm.
And you see your competition has changed to a culture more based on respect and people actually feeling fulfilled by their work. And their market share is going up. Their share price is going up. They're attracting really good talent, and we're not. Well, that starts now, because guess what? This whole Great Resignation, labor shortage bull stuff, that is despite what too many people think, that is not happening equitably. There are companies that literally have lines out the door that are attracting good talent because they're saying, look, we also liked what happened during the pandemic. We get that people want to work from home, and we invite you to do that within our culture. And the other people that aren't changing, that want to go back to the old normal that sucked so bad, they're going to keep losing people. So maybe this quarter, if we keep being the way we are right now, maybe this quarter is going to look okay. 12 quarters from right now, you got a problem, because the labor shortage is not hitting everybody the same. The culture issues are not hitting everybody the same. The human issues are different for everybody. And we have to adapt for 12 quarters from now, not this week.
You know, but I think the key point here, and I know you guys are making it in the book, is that we as leaders, we have to set the standard. We can't just, because as you said, people are like, oh yeah, we've heard all this stuff before. Like, this is flavor of the month and it'll all disappear next week. So let's just, keep our heads down until the next consultant comes along. When I remember when this happened, and it happened pre-pandemic. I can't remember when it was, but I think it was 2018, that Dan Price, he's the CEO of Gravity Payments. You know who Dan is? Dan Price, who said, you know what? This is terrible that everybody's working on a wage that's not even livable. It's way too much disparage. So he took a pay cut and paid everyone a minimum of $70K, because that was the number he found out was a living wage. And today he speaks out against CEOs. He speaks out against leaders. He's, for me, freaking rocks, right?
Absolutely.
I mean, because he's not just saying it, he's doing it. He took the pay cut. He raised the janitor's pay, and he goes, and he talks about how certain people were like, well, my job's more important than his job, and I should, why it is, and he said, no, if we work here, we're all going to get respect, and we're all going to be respectful.
Yeah.
And so I love that Dan Price is that wonderful example of what it takes. However, now let's go to the other side of it. The other side of it is this. The old white guys are going, and some of it I agree with, I've got to say, is everybody's become too fragile. Everything's offensive. We want to do this culture of respect, and I'm in favor of that, but like, holy moly, like, you look sideways at people, and it's a sexual assault. There's these, everything is, if I look sideways, it's a microaggression. And I'm meeting leaders who are going like, you know what, I'm out. I can't handle this. So talk to us about that side of it, right? Because, the Dan Price side of it is phenomenal, right? I'm very impressed. But on the other side of it is the old white guy who's saying, I want to change, but it's overwhelming in the, we're trying to do respect, but everybody's idea of respect is so different. And some of it is so over the top. There's no resilience.
Yeah, you talk about outliers having different opinions and then being offended, of course, right? Which is unfortunately amplified by social media. And literally what we help senior leadership teams do is decide what the ground floor is going to be for your respectful culture. Meaning you don't want 20 values with 3 or 4 behaviors each. I can't remember what I wore yesterday. You need it simple and you need it actionable. So we're going to let you have 12 behaviors. Some will argue to 16. I had one client, a retailer, they were, I think, the largest retailer in the world. Oops, sorry. So I had a division I worked with. They had 32 behaviors, but they said in our environment, that's what's needed. And they were dead on right. It worked wonderfully across 400 stores in 7 states. And what's interesting is that you have to draw the line and say, we're going to start with this definition of what respect smells like around here. And everyone has to salute and align. And how do you know people are aligning? Well, we'll create an anonymous, confidential means of surveying leaders by their direct reports, which means, yeah, you have to have 3 or more, because otherwise confidentiality kind of goes out the window when you only have 1 or 2 respondents, right? But we need to create a tool by which, okay, may not be perfect. This is our definition of respect, these 12 behaviors. And every 6 months, every formal leader gets a profile, a report that rates them. And I think we showed in last couple of months ago, Dov, about some of the snapshots of the tools that we provide. And literally it's a values alignment survey. And of course, I showed you the president's one. We use a 6-point scale. 5 and 6 is good. And he was at 4 9s and 5 3s. He says, boy, that's outstanding. I said, you got some 4 9s, right? You fall below. So I know you can be better. One of his field-based supervisors was seen by his 15 direct reports as not hitting anywhere near a 4.9. He was a 2 to a 4. And that was a shock to the leadership there, because all of a sudden they have an undeniable snapshot of this guy needs training or he can't stay here. Now, I'll tell you, that's 4 years ago, and the guy is way less demeaning and dismissive. But without that data, without that black and white snapshot of here's a good score, here's not a good score, and these behaviors are important, then you're never going to know how maybe badly leaders far flung from the office are treating your people.
So we're very close to the end.
Mind, I'll add to that.
Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, sorry, I'll make it really quick. So what you described in this litigious, always offended, social media like environment where we can't even tell a joke anymore without offending somebody. Well, first of all, you know whether a joke is offensive or not, or appropriate or not, and you made the decision to tell that joke. So you have to be held responsible for that decision. So when you get right down to it, that a little common sense has to come into play here. But this is also a leadership issue. Because
it's extremely rare. Let's not forget that.
Well, and that's where it becomes a leadership issue. Because if you tolerate that person telling racist jokes, you've made the decision to build your culture around that behavior. And if you go and say, look, I didn't find it offensive, but she did, well, you're still tolerating. You're almost rationalizing. You're making an excuse for it. And so this is very much a leadership issue. Now, part of it also is this, oh, I'm always offended thing. Well, fine, then make one of your values, we de-escalate drama, right? And so now we will quickly find out in a matter of weeks or months whether you as a leader are living up to that value or not. and we're going to find out who within that team doesn't live up to that value. And if you're always offended, and if you're always a victim, and if you're always causing problem because of your sensibilities, then we're gonna coach you, we're gonna mentor you, we're gonna try and fix that. But if we can't, we're gonna go let you be successful somewhere else. Because one of our values is we just de-escalate drama, and you're the opposite of that, so you can't be here. And so that's where a leader has to go. Look, I love you. You've worked with us for 15 years, but lately you become this drama king, and that doesn't work here anymore. It doesn't fit within our new company culture, and we need to lovingly set you free.
I agree with everything you guys have said. And the one thing I just want to ask you before we go, because we're getting to the end of the show, is all three of us are old white guys. So, and you've written this book, which is a bit of a punch in the nose for a lot of old white guys. So when did you get it? Like, so when did, you were brought up in the same culture I was brought up in work-wise. Yeah. You were brought up in, you become a position of power, you can do whatever the hell you like, and it's okay. At what point did you guys get to and go, well, like, what changed you? What made you go, that's not okay anymore?
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you, I'm the oldest of the bunch of us, and I'm proud to still be kicking, but
3 weeks. Right?
in there somewhere, right? But yeah. I was working for a nonprofit. Nonprofits, you think, oh, there's this wonderful mission orientation if you're working for a nonprofit. And I spent 15 years as an executive, and I had my worst boss from hell. Within months later, I had the best boss I'd ever met in the same context, the same organization, different operations, right? Mm. What it let me know is being an effective leader and an inspirational leader and a, God forbid, respectful leader doesn't mean you miss performance. It doesn't mean you lose money. And so what I really for myself said, I was asked to lie in front of a room full of volunteers. And I said, you and I are done. First of all, I didn't lie, and he was pissed. And then I said, I have to get out of here. So that for me was that moment. But what my fear has kind of slightly been eliminated, or at least reduced, is we can teach leaders how to do this differently.
What was it brought you to the point of realizing, because again, Mark, you also would have grown up in the same mentality of the old white guys that, what we were told was okay. What brought you to the point of realizing I'm doing it wrong and I need to change it?
Dub, I'm old enough to live the first phase of hustle culture, except in the 1980s in Silicon Valley, in the startup world and in the semiconductor world, we called ourselves yuppies, not hustlers. So, yeah. So here I am. I am an engineer working for this amazing company, making a ridiculous amount of money. This kid from the mountains in Oregon that had no business living under the palm trees in California with a pool and a beautiful wife and a newborn child. And I hated it. I hated every minute of it. It was the same commute to the same cubicle, to the same monitor, to the same keyboard, to the same coffee machine every single day. And I went to Boston. I flew to Boston for a business trip. 1 week turned into 2 weeks, 2 weeks turned into 4 weeks. And my firstborn son, who was born with very long dark hair, all of that hair had fallen out, and it was now short, stubbly blonde hair. And as soon as I saw them at the airport, I went, I'm never missing this segment of my life again. This is never going to happen to me again. And that was the trigger. And that was 1990. So for 32 years, I've been on this path of independent work, working for myself, working from home. And I have worked from home since 1999. It was my last attempt to fit in what other people thought was a great culture.
Well, gentlemen, this has been a pleasure and an honor. Thank you so much. You're doing great work, and it's really important work. And I do believe that good comes first, and I love the way you're approaching it from this position of, as you said, from this position of looking at it from being old white men and saying, you know what, the way we've been leading is not okay, and that there is a better way, and that we can actually be way more profitable and way more successful by actually honoring and respecting ourselves and others. Gents, again, thank you so much. Please tell everybody where they can find out more about you, about the book, and about your speaking, and how they can find out about bringing you in potentially.
Well, thank you for the opportunity to speak with your listeners. And we can be found at goodcomesfirst.com. It's very simple. We're very active on social, but that might be the easiest place for you to find out about the book and about what we do. And we'd love to talk with you.
Fabulous. Well, again, gents, thank you so much. I hope you'll stay with us to the end of the show. Until then, remember, for you, dear listener, you can listen to, you can hang out and listen with other conscious leaders as we chat about this episode or any past episodes inside of our Facebook or LinkedIn groups. Just look for the Leadership and Loyalty podcast. It doesn't matter how successful you are. If your employees and your customers don't understand what gives your company meaning, you're only working at a fraction of your true capability. To find out how you can hire me, Dov Baron, as a speaker or leadership strategist for yourself or your organization, simply go to dovbaron.com, because unified, actualized meaning is the one single monolithic difference between mediocrity and greatness for all individuals and companies. I want to thank you for sharing the show with everybody you know. Till next time, stay curious, my friend. Stay curious about how good has to come first in order for you to succeed, in order for you to last, and in order for you to make the difference that you're actually here to make. Because let's face it, business and leadership is about service. We're here to serve. So how can we serve at a higher level? That's what you need to get curious about. I'm Dov Baron. I'm here to assist you tapping into your deepest meaning to reach that next level of clarity, focus, purpose, and profit in your business, your life, and your leadership impact. And I am out.